Yeah.
Let's go. How
What'd you
ready?
say?
Said how ready are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Scale of 1 to 10. We're looking at about a 10.2. It's like just above ready. It's not like an
What it
11.
is, you know who it is. We're back. Welcome back to the BG Perform podcast. Our first full episode with my new co-host, one of my favorite people on the earth, Gerald Leo Hayes.
Oh, that's me, dude. That's crazy.
Away all your information.
His social security number is.
In case you didn't know, here's all his information. We had the initial talk last week introducing Jerry, introducing kind of how we're going to be working him into the BG Perform team. Him and I have been working on a ton of stuff, and it's coming fast. So we're gonna be getting this stuff out there very soon, and I'm excited. I know you're laughing, but
I'm sorry. I'm four. I'm 12 years old.
it's but it's going to be put out soon, and I'm excited to get this stuff out there. I'm excited to get all this just everything that we've been working on, and get some of these offers out here and make sure everything's rolling. So today we're going to be talking about the we're going to be talking about coaching from day one, right? So I put out a thread not too long ago, and me and Jerry have kind of both talked about this, in a lot of different posts that we've had over the years, but working at the highest level, right? And I've had a lot of questions recently in the last couple of years, and Jerry has experience as well as working with professional athletes. He might not be doing it right now, but I know at some point, I believe in Rochester, right? You worked with a lot of NHL guys.
Yeah. There were some NHL guys at the gym I used to work out of there.
Yeah, so we both have experience in this field, and I think right now, obviously, me being in the mix with it, having experience with Amanda, having experience now, like following Ian, and being with some of these athletes on a regular basis, which I have a little bit of a different perspective. One, because I think the sports that I train in, right? So like Amanda, Ian, even Ariani, like being around them a little bit more, but the sports that they're in are a little bit different, right? They're not, sometimes I even struggle to call them sports because you're literally fighting someone. But it's what it is. It's a sport, and I think that the way it's handled is slightly different. But I also think this is even more true. This thread that I made, and the things that Jerry and I have both talked about, that if you want to get to this level, right? If this is your goal and this is your dream, and I want to also say this, right? Like, having a dream of not working with athletes is perfectly fine, right? And I think I've told a lot of people this, but like when I first started Thrive, my first gym in New York, I did not really want to work with athletes, right? I had a desire to one day work with athletes, like in this capacity, but I initially just wanted to work with like general people, and I didn't really ask to work with athletes. I didn't really ask to work with that type of clientele. You know, I think all of us, when we're young and we start to get into coaching, we all have that desire to work with like these top level athletes. You know what I mean? But it starts honestly with these everyday people, and I think both of us here can attest to it. Right? Is that like these people that walk into your gym on day one, who aren't athletes, who literally probably have never touched weights in their life, have never moved properly in their life. Like this is what helps. You know what I mean? And I think that when people go to these high level universities and they go to these coaches who, like myself, are coaching individuals, like Amanda, like Ian, like Dustin, like, name the list of people, that I've currently worked with, and maybe even the NHL athletes that you've worked with, and they see these guys and they're like, okay, that's what I want to do, right? But when you work with these types of individuals, you know they're still human, and I'm always going to go back to that. And I've been having this thought more and more each day in the past week, because I've been listening to some stuff, and I keep hearing people talk about athletes, and they're like, they're superhuman, they're this and that, they're and it's not that they're not superhuman, right? It's just that they're still human. And oftentimes what I find is that people glorify some of these athletes to the point that it scares people into actually training them. You know what I mean? And it gives everybody this idea that like you can't train them in certain ways and you have to do, you know, explosive, like all these explosive fancy drills. And most of the time, you know, I found you don't, especially in some of these sports like MMA, where MMA is essentially a year-round sport, right? You can take time off if you'd like, but like you can get a fight at any date, at any time. There is no off season, right? Unless you're choosing to have an off season. And for a lot of times, for people who are stepping up into the field and are very new into fighting, right? Or like low level UFC, low level of these big promotions, there is no off season, right? You have to be ready at every single point to get a fight, get an opportunity, right? And then once you step into that and you get those couple wins under your belt and you build that understanding of like, hey, this is who I am, then it's like, all right, maybe I'm going to take a couple months off before I get into the octagon again, right? But early on, you don't have that luxury, right? If there's a fight, you know, and I've seen some of these guys who have become stars because of it, right? Kevin Holland is as an example, you know, where he fought 6 times in 1 year, right? And half of that was in like a 3-month span. You know what I mean? That's nuts, right? Because essentially, because it literally is the most brutal contact sport you could have, right? And then coming back consistently from that, and then let alone 6 times in a year when the average camp time for most people is around 8 to 12 weeks, right? So his camp time was essentially a month each time. That's a lot of stress on the body, a lot of, you know, and that's why he's a gangster, you know what I mean? That's why he's looked at in the way he is. Dustin is an example of that. Justin Gaethje is an example of that. Conor used to be an example of that, right? Where he would step up, and Conor is one of the prime examples you'll see, is because early on in his career, when he had like this meteoric rise, he was fighting like it was almost like, you know, you turn around, it was like another fight, another fight, another fight. And then in the last, you know, you say 4 years, he's fought twice, you know what I mean? Whether it be because of injury or choosing or whatever, it's like that's what you start to see. So, you know, went down a little rabbit hole there, but bringing it back is like when you start to look at these individuals, right? And you have to coach high level individuals where there is no room for error. There is no room for like, hey, let's try this. You know what I mean? Or like, I saw this thing on Instagram, let's try it, right? Like that doesn't fly in most of these positions with these guys. You have to have these skills from day one, soon as you step in, right? And I had the luxury early on, and like I want to hear obviously Jerry's perspective as well, but you know, I had the luxury early on of being able to like fuck up as a coach so many times, right? And when I remember sitting there, and I actually had this conversation like 6 months ago with somebody, and I remember telling him like if I saw my first program that I ever wrote, I'd vomit. Like it was just so bad, you know what I mean? I remember sitting there like questioning like simplest stuff, right? And I remember having the conversation with my business partner at the time, being like, "Oh my god, I don't know what to do here." I was trying to debate like how to use the dumbbells and like if we should do rowing too many times. And I was just like sitting there like like, and I was just couldn't do it. Like I was just so nervous. And then I'd bring it out into the floor or bring it out into the program like when they were actually doing it. I was just like, I hope this is right. I hope this is right. Yeah, that's right. I hope this is right. And I was just like so nervous, but like now it's just such a
second nature.
Second nature thing to me. But like I had that chance to like mess up. I had that chance to be like, all right, that obviously didn't work. And it was like, all right, I should stop this. You know what I mean? Instead of like, you know, and these are average, and not to say that they're any less valuable, right, as people, but like the stakes aren't as high, right? There's no like, hey, I have to be ready for this date. It's like, hey, we're trying new stuff. We're trying to get in shape. We're trying, you know, all these different things. And this time early in your career, when you get those first couple clients, is not the time to be like, all right, these people don't matter. You know, like maybe they're not Amanda Nunez's or Ian Gary's, right? And it's like, I don't, you know, I'm not going to give them full attention, right? That's the complete opposite, right? Because if you can understand early on, and if you are a young coach and you're stepping up into this field, you know, treat them as if they're Amanda Nunes, treat them as if they're Ian Gary, right? Because that's only going to translate more and more down the line into getting these opportunities, right? And I think that, you know, it's funny because I've had people reach out to me from the last couple months of like the things they've seen, right? And especially with like this trainer of the year nomination, I've had a couple people reach out and they're like, "Oh, I wish I answered your text back in the day." I'm like, "Fuck yeah, you should have." You know what I mean? Like, this is what I was doing the whole time. But like, it's that type of thing where now, it takes time to get recognition. It takes time to like see these little pieces of success in your career. But I always treated it from day one that I was this kind of coach, right? And it didn't matter. Honestly, it didn't matter. It just so happened that, I worked hard enough and put myself in the right positions that, Amanda and Ian and other people came into my career, right? But like, I'm still considering myself trainer of the year every single year. You know what I mean? Like, I've always considered myself this. Now some companies, nominated me for the award, which is awesome, and I'd love it. This is one of the things that I'd love. But like, I've always treated my career like that. And this is and what's special about this is that like I've always told myself if I had the opportunity, I would get here, and we're here. You know what I mean? And I think for most people, maybe you don't ever get to that, right? But that's okay, one. And two, like it starts right now to even have an opportunity to get there. Right. And Jerry, I don't want to, if you want to cut it at any point, like feel free. And especially like your take on this, because maybe, and I think Jerry's a good example because he may not be working with those types of individuals right now, right? But I know from working with Jerry for years, like how probably really with the fitness stuff, probably the last like 10 years, we've been very closely working with each other. That he puts that time, he puts that effort, he puts those little details in. And I know when we have these conversations about programming, when we have these conversations about the ins and outs of coaching, like he's there on that level, right? And all he needs to do is just continue to work, right? And that's all we need to do is continue to work, and all that stuff's going to come. So if you have any perspective on that, let's hear it.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as like you said, like it starts on day one. And one point that you made that I've always said, I've had a few different like gyms that I've worked in the past like couple of years, but in one of them I was kind of this senior guy where I was the most experienced, and a lot of the trainers would look to me for advice. And I remember one day hearing someone, we had like very little time to like manage client like programs and everything. And someone said, "Oh, well, this person's coming in. I'll just give them something simple. Like they're like pretty beginner anyway, but I won't put too much time into it." And I was just like, I kind of like tilted my head a little bit, and they were like, "What?" And I remember having this conversation. I was like, whether it's Joe Schmo who comes in the gym or your top client who puts up the best numbers, shows up daily to work really hard, like you need to put just as much thought into that program as you do for that top client. So like it, and it's one of those things where working with clients who don't move well, or they're super new, like they might have Bambi legs in every single movement they do, working with them and figuring out what helps them still works for that pro athlete. If
Really?
especially if they have a setback, they do something that's not moving well, or like something hurts, you're like, okay, well, I've seen this a million times with people who have tightness in this area or that area that pretty much every general population client has, because most people have desk jobs or whatever. You can translate that to like a pro athlete.
Yeah, and I
It's
think,
the
and
same
like I said,
issues.
I think this is where you learn, right? Because I think
Yeah.
these athletes are really good. Uh, they're really good at adaptation, right? And that's essentially all this comes down to is how well can someone adapt to stress and stimulus. And athletes are just really good at that, right? The average person is not, and that's where you start to
Yeah.
see the stickiness, or you start to see this lack of movement, this lack of quality of movement. So what I see is like when people see these everyday people move, they miss out on so much knowledge in such a small, compact thing, right? Because you can try different things with these individuals, right? And again, I don't say that as in like it doesn't matter. I say that as in like this is an opportunity to really learn as a coach, learn what works, what doesn't work, what type of individual, what type of language can you use, what cueing patterns, all these little finer details you can actually learn within these first couple sessions with an individual. Because when you, and again, I've dealt with some people and they're not all amazing to work with, right? And meaning like personality, the way they move, the way they perceive things, right? They deal with stress. Some of these people are stressing out, cutting weight, and they're, miserable to be around. And I mean it, miserable to be around. And it's like you can't say one thing and they explode. And it's like, that takes time to be able to deal with and to learn from and understand. So like it starts from these first sessions, right? And another thing we can talk about, we can kind of like transition into, is like when you have these first couple sessions, having structure, right? Like setting yourself up from success early on, right? Is not only the coaching part, it's the systems, it's the structure, it's the pricing, it's the, all of this stuff, right? Because I think that people wait and I did for a while, right? I waited for that opportunity to come to then get ready, as opposed to getting ready. So when that opportunity comes, I'm there, right? And when I had my first gym, a lot of that was me waiting for that opportunity to come, as opposed to like just getting ready for the opportunity, right? I was learning on the fly a lot. And when you own a business, right, it's a lot. There's a lot of shit that goes into owning your own business. There's a lot of details. There's a lot of things that I didn't, like, I'm talking about you with coaching now. I didn't do from day one. I didn't treat as I should have from day one. If I wanted to run a successful business, I needed to treat it like it was Amazon on day one. And I didn't, right? And I didn't follow little details, and I didn't have certain conversations, and I didn't look at things in a certain way. And, it didn't not work out. You know what I mean? Like the place is still open. I'm not a part of it anymore. You know what I mean? So like the gym was fine and we were running things, but it was more of like a personal thing that didn't work out because I didn't treat it as this is Amazon on day one. Right. And I think that too many people get lost early on into like, oh, this isn't big enough. I'm not getting enough recognition, blah, 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 blah. I think both of us can sit here and agree that like we've been doing this I know I have, right? Like I've been working for like, I like to say the start of my career was 2013, like when I initially lost weight. Because for me, that's what like really twisted everything and made me like, all right, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And when I made that conscious decision for myself, that's when everything went in that direction, right? And obviously, like a lot of this stuff is meant to be, right? Like I have the word Maktub tattooed on me, and it means it was already written, right? And like for me, a lot of the things that have happened recently are part of that. It's like this was already written, and I'm just here, going through this process and like receiving everything. But with that being said, it's not, I didn't not work. You know what I mean? Like I did not treat every single client. You can go back, and the clients that were closest to me during that time, I still talk to a lot of them, right? Because I care more than just the paycheck. I care more than just how much are you paying me each month? And I do my best to reach out, and I do my best to treat them as if they're superstars, because to me they are. They're the ones who believed in me first. You know what I mean? They're the ones who are like, yeah, I don't know this kid, but like I'll trust him with my health and fitness, right? And I wouldn't fucking trust myself. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe not. I don't know.
I mean,
like,
you say that. Dude, you were talking about like looking at your first program too.
Yeah, like
I found the first program I wrote. I went through it. It was fucking terrible.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I tried though, and I saw it, and I did that program, and that's the biggest thing too. Like, if you're programming, you should, like, when you're just starting, try your own program, see how it runs, see how you feel based on it. Like, if you're not recovering and you're like, fuck, dude, I did squats 4 times this week. It's like, well, that's why, dipshit. Like,
yeah, and I think it's
yeah.
funny. I heard a quote from this guy I've been listening to a lot recently, Alex Hormozy, and I gotta remember the exact way he put it. If not, I'm just gonna paraphrase, but I'll probably paraphrase. He said like the person I am today would look at like the person 5 years ago and be like, wow, he's stupid, right? And he's like, but what's scary is like the person 5 years from now is gonna look at me and be like, wow, he's stupid.
Yeah, dude, it's just a never-ending growth cycle. Like, you
like,
just constantly need to learn.
exactly. So like me kind of looking into this stuff and doing it is like now I am where I'm at, right? I'm coaching some of these people. We're having success. We're building this thing together, talking about me and Jerry, we're building this brand, we're building this business, and like along with that, we're each individually building our clients, building the people that we work with. And I'm going to look back and be like, damn, that was bad. Like, damn, you could have done better. And like, that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? But like, what's beautiful about it is that these steps now are exactly just like, it's all, and you're just doing exactly the best you can with what you know. Right. And from that point, you treat this every day as if you are the best. Right. And I promise you, and I'm only telling you this from experience, right? People, I consider myself the best coach that I am from day one when I opened Thrive, right? Again, was it earned? No, right? I wasn't going around walking around being like, I'm the best coach in the world. I just believed in myself that like if people worked with me, overall, they were going to get someone who cared and that we're going to be there and we're going to give them their best efforts, right? And from that point on, I continued that all the way up to what it is today, right? And when people, when I've had some of the surreal moments, like, example recently with Amanda's last fight, like I had my own little like name spot on the UFC embedded, or this award, or being at some of these events that I've been in or working with some of the people is like, yeah, this is awesome. But like, I remember being at Thrive with, Matt Smith or Diane or Amy and these people or Josh, right? Like these people that were the first people to literally believe in me and be like, hey, listen, I trust you, take me on this journey with you. Right. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to have these conversations. I wouldn't be able to go into a situation with Amanda without knowing anything and help her feel better and heal to go back and win a championship fight. Right. Like these things don't just come and poof out of air. And I'm just like, oh, well, I'm just going to guess here. Right. It's like, no, I've done this with people. I've done this with people who, their life revolves around fitness. Right. And like, it helps so much when you have those opportunities. Right. And I think Jerry can talk about it now because he's seeing it more than I am currently. Like fitness means a lot to people. And if they're in the right environment, like it can mean the difference between them, succeeding in life and, really just not being great people. And a gym can really change someone. And, I think you and I have probably worked in, I don't even know, probably like combined like 10 gyms, I would assume at this point, right? Like how many gyms have you worked at?
3. I've been in 3 because most of it was in the middle and the first one.
Okay.
So it was like 3, something like 2 or 3 years in the first one, and then 2 or 3 in the second, and then about a year and some change in this one. So like it's
okay. So now I've been at Black Sheep. I had Thrive. I had my own thing at Alex's gym. Then I moved to Nashville. Then I was at Daru.
Yeah, because you moved around a lot too.
Yeah, so I've been in like 7, I'm gonna say 7 different coaching environments, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And each one was crazy, right? Like the very first one at Black Sheep, which was a CrossFit gym in Albany, that was an experience in and of itself, right? And I had great mentors there. Dean was an awesome mentor, and he was someone who taught me a lot. And then I had my first owning experience in Thrive, and that was, that was what made me. Like I had everything, that I had to handle there, along with dealing with relationships with the people that were there, along with dealing with personal relationships, along with dealing with business partners, and seeing that transition between like friend and business and like how it can go sour. You know what I mean? And I remember the first couple talks I had with my business partner at the time when we were sitting with the accountant, and mistakes I made, like literally like not writing operators agreements. Not again, like these are simple things that need to be treated as like day one. Like my company is going to make $1 billion and I have to start now. Right. And it's the same thing with coaching. Is like my coaching is going to help someone win at the highest level or whatever your highest level is. And it starts right now. Right. So in each of these environments, the one before always helps me. Right. Whether it was a positive or a negative, and most of them unfortunately ended up as like negatives. Right. They helped me realize like, and I shouldn't even say negatives. Right. But like negatives as in like the desired outcome I had at the beginning was not the outcome that happened at the end, but positives in terms of like it helped me see all these things that necessarily, one, I didn't need, and two, it gave me the confidence to be like, yo, like you are more than fucking capable to do this on your own, right? Like you know what you need to do. You have the ability, you have the work ethic, you have the things you need to do. Like, and then me step back and say like that, I believe this, but where are my deficits, right? Like what is holding me back? And then find the pieces to the puzzle that are going to help me move forward, whether it's adding Jerry, right, and having another mind too, because being on your own is great, right, but I sometimes I miss that ability to have someone there to push me mentally, to like force my hand and be like, well, why are you doing that, or like, why aren't you doing this, right? And I had that at some of these places that now I don't, because I'm mostly on my own. So having someone like Jerry in regards to that, having the virtual assistant that I work with for being like, hey, listen, I don't really know what to do here, and I need this. Like, here's what I want. Send me something, right? And Jerry's seen it now that he's in there. It's just like ask, receive, fix, and then we have, right? And that's just like adding these little pieces into your puzzle as you go from day one, right? I've always learned. If you ask me, I think it's 5 years now, or 6 years ago when I opened Thrive. It's 2017, August. I think it was August 17th. Yeah. So somewhere around 5 or 6 years ago when I opened Thrive, I wouldn't have known any of this shit. You know what I mean? And I thought I knew stuff when I was opening a business. I was like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing. And like it was miserable.
Puts pants on backwards.
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
Pushes
like
the
this,
full
right?
door.
Yeah. Just forces. It goes both ways.
It goes both ways. But yeah, so that whole thing was just it was, each experience brought me to the next one with more and more information, right? And then to the final point where now, even as I've gotten this opportunity with Ian, is like, I'm sure this is going to teach me something, like it's going to teach me something in a lot of ways. It's going to teach me travel, right? It's bringing me around the world. It's going to teach me living with a family, essentially, right? Or a team, and working in this environment and being in that. And it's not going to be a forever thing, right? It obviously, I hope it's for a long time, but like obviously Ian's only going to fight for X amount of time. I don't know. But like during this time, it's going to teach me. And what it's also taught me is to like be so in the moment during these times, to realize and learn and take in as much as I wasn't in the past, right? And the same thing with sessions. I remember sessions where I went in and I was like, oh, I'm not excited, I'm tired, blah blah blah. And then I would go back and be like, damn, I wish I had a better session there, right? So I try to let that not happen as much anymore, because like, I'm living in essentially a dream situation. You know what I mean? Like this is what I asked for. And one of the things that's really cool with one of the mentors I work with now is that he always says that. He's like, yo, like this is what you fucking asked for. So like be there. You know what I mean? Like you asked to be in this certain situations. You asked to be, working with individuals like you're working with. So like be excited. Like it's okay to be excited. It's okay to, be happy and be be very much involved with what you're doing, right? You don't have to give off like this, whatever type of environment, you know what I mean? And that's what I've kind of seen in the past in a lot of ways, where it's like you have to almost like give off like this I don't care personality. And like I don't want to be that, you know what I mean? And from the beginning, like I said, and I'm going to bring this back, but like that's how I've treated it from the beginning, right? Like I've treated it from the beginning. We have to be willing to take these steps each and every day and just learn and grow and learn and grow and learn and grow and learn and grow, right? So yeah, and if you have anything to add to that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean it's the whole idea. Like I remember so the first gym I worked at, owner Nate Van Kallenberg, freaking absolute G. His first piece of advice when I was an intern before I was hired, he said, no bad days. He said, your dog gets hit by a car, you're like, you go going through a breakup, whatever it is, no bad days. You show up to a session, you give it your all. And it kind of goes back to that same idea. No matter who the client, you give 100% of your attention, 100% of your energy into that session, and it's going to go well. And it's the same thing with no bad days is if you're showing up and you're kind of sluggish or whatever, your clients will feel that. They'll feel the energy is lower. They'll feel that you're not all there. You're not giving them 100% attention. You're not as amped up in their session. They may just feel that and continue to push through, but some and most people will feel that. And then instead of pushing through, they're just like, oh, I'll probably just stay at this weight today. They're
Yeah.
not gonna, they're not gonna bump up or like push extra hard in conditioning because you are their energy too. Because not only are you their guide for knowledge in the weight room and making them better in their sport and like helping to assist them, you're also giving them the energy that's going to push them through that for them to unlock their full potential. And there's a reason that they're coming to you. They're not just coming to you as a trainer to just like tell them what to do. They're coming to you so you can truly change their path in their sport or even in life if it's a general population client. So just making sure no matter what, no bad days, you come in, let's say whatever happens, someone cut you off, you park your car, you go in the gym, they come in the gym, they show up, you're like, what's up, dude? You ready to freaking go? Like get amped. Don't just show up and be like, hey, you ready? Cool. How's your day? Awesome. We're gonna squat. And just fucking like walk away. You gotta go in with 100% intent to just make their day better, assuming like, and just to add one more thing, like I'm sure Brandon's experienced the same thing. You'll have a client who comes in, they're like, hey, good. Yeah, my day's good. Yeah, sure. Let's get started. And then at the end of the session, they're like, I had really fucked up situation at work. Like this went wrong and that went wrong. Or, this happened today and I got really bad news. And this session really changed it around. It turned it around. It's making me feel a lot better. So thank you. And I'm sure Brandon's gotten those thank yous. I know I have. And when you get that thank you, it's because you showed up with all your energy. If you came in half-assed, that's just another thing on their list of things that went bad for the day. That's another thing that they're going to look and be like, and even my session today was shit. But if you're the reason that their day went well, you can honestly change the path of their day too. So it's all about the energy that you bring in
and I think
to every single session.
And I think like it's an interesting conversation, right? Because another thing along with just programming, right? Like if we're just talking about programming from day one, right? Like the way you treat a session from day one is exactly what you're talking about. It's that conversation of like, okay, well, like I'm stepping into an environment where I have an individual who wants to improve their fitness and they're trusting me with that, right? Like you should be excited.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, maybe early on you're not charging what you need to, or you're not, you don't have the facility that you exactly dream of or whatever. But, this is an opportunity for you to sit and be honest with like, how you want to create the opportunities that you want as a coach. Right. And day one, you should be hyped. You should be like, yo, someone believes in me and they want me to help them. Like, that's fucking awesome. Like, I want to crush this. Right. And I think that what happens is, and this is something that I want to change, right? And this is why I want to have these conversations. This is why, my mission statement is to influence the highest standard of health and performance, right? Is like, what happens is coaches come in excited. And I remember I was, right? And you come in excited, you get ready, you get clients, you're making money, you have people believe in you. And then you have to do that 100 times, day in and day out, for hours and hours and hours on end, every single day for months and years. And then you're like, oh my God, like you don't sleep, you don't, you don't take care of yourself, you don't do the things that you need to do. And it's like, okay, well, like, how is that healthy? Right. And then like that translates into bad training, that translates into bad coaching, that translates into bad, everything. Right. And then that translates into an individual who's not getting the best version of you. And there goes the field. Right. And that's what we have when we see people today. On top of that, I think that the barrier of entry into personal training is just low. So it's like, okay.
It's way too low.
Yeah. And like, you can get a weekend course, right. And be a trainer, right. Whether someone believes in you, right. Or whether someone actually, that's a different story. Right. And what happens a lot of times in personal training is you get very good salesmen who become personal trainers and not the opposite. Right. And this is what you see. And this is why the industry is like so frowned upon sometimes, right? It's like salesmen make a lot of money and then they're not great coaches, right? And then coaches don't make a lot of money because they're not great salesmen. So then the salesman, they start this industry and they're very shady, very, looking for a dollar. And it makes, obviously, just like everything else in the world, everybody else under that seem like, oh, they're just looking for a dollar. Right. And then the real good coaches, the people who care, don't have the sales or marketing experience to get themselves out there. So it's very local, right? Or they never get to that reach, right? But nowadays you're starting to see more and more of these people get opportunities, more and more of these coaches stepping up and getting out there and being heard. And it's, in my eyes, hopefully going to start changing things, right? And I want to be at the forefront of that. I want to be one of those people who's speaking up like, yo, no, like day one, be your best version of yourself, right? Whatever the best version of you is at that point, be it. There's no reason for you not to be it, right? Because if you're not excited about it, then don't fucking do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't be a coach, because it's hard. It's not easy to be a fucking coach. Like, no one's sitting here being like personal training is easy, right? If you think it is, then you're probably either not doing it right, or you're not going to last very long, right? And like, if you're going into a session and you're giving your all and you're focusing on the things you're supposed to focus on, and you're having those conversations, right? And you're really learning about these individuals and you're listening, then like it's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that for years and years and years at a very high level, you're going to get exhausted, right? But what you get with that is, hopefully, if you're putting in that time and you're treating it in the way that it needs to be treated, you're going to get experience. You're going to get referrals. You're going to get results. You're going to get, what's the other word I'm looking for? Like credibility, right? Like, people are going to start to understand like, hey, this dude puts out a good product, and more people are going to want to work with you, and more people are going to want to talk about you. And then that's where this rest of this stuff builds up. This is where the credibility builds up. This is where, everything that us as coaches are looking for starts when you do this on day one, right? It starts then. That's how you build up the referrals. You build up the clientele. You build up the communication. You build up all these little tiny small details that build you up and raise you higher and higher as a coach. And you get the opportunities that you want, you truly want, right? No one wants to work 12 hours a day coaching people, right? And it's not like, it's not that it's a bad thing, because coaching people is usually fun, but like, it's when you're doing it for 12 hours in a day and you haven't stopped to eat, you haven't stopped to go to the bathroom, you haven't, taken care or worked out of yourself, right? Like, that's when things get to start to not be fun. And a lot of the industry, a lot of the people that are involved in it are at a race to the bottom. They're trying to charge like super low prices, blah, 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 getting all the way to the bottom, and they're ruining the industry and they're ruining it for everybody else, right? For me, my life goal for the past 6 years since I opened Thrive was to create an opportunity where people look at personal trainers just like they look at a lawyer, just like they look at a doctor, just as they look at any real professional. Well, I say real, but real professional in the world, right? And for those who aren't watching, I put quotes around real.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you went like this.
Yeah, we know how these doctors and lawyers, these quote unquote professionals are. But I want people to not come in and talk to a personal trainer and be like, yeah, I'm just not going to go, I'll blow off the session, right? Or it's just a personal trainer, what does he know, right? Because that's what happens. And that's happened to me before, right? Up until this point where I'm at now, I've talked to so many people and I've tried to get my message out there and work with people. And I've gotten that, what does he know? He's too young. He's this, he's that, doesn't know this, doesn't know that. And it's like, now I'm like, bro, this is what I've been talking about for years. You know what I mean? And not to be a dick or like shove it in anybody's face, but like, this is what I've been talking about for years. This is what I tried to get across to people. And this is like this, these ideas, these things that I talk about, like, these aren't new theories. Right. And like, you'd be, I if you go on my Instagram and you go back, I've been talking about the same shit for like 6 years. Hip airplanes, RDLs, right? Like, same shit, like
basics work, baby.
And that's what I'm saying. Is like, yes, you see me, progress and like, not to, I don't even know, like, you'd be surprised how far a single leg RDL has taken me. You know what I mean? Like literally it's taken me all the way to like where I am today. Right.
I didn't have chest hair before single leg RDLs.
I was in the womb when I was doing first single leg RDL.
First single leg RDL, the doctor said, I didn't spank his ass yet. Just ran out the womb.
They took me out, and I said, give me some room, I need to do another single.
There's no weight in there. How am I supposed to progress?
Somebody get me a barbell. I was 2 weeks late for that, just to let you guys know.
You were 2 weeks late.
Yeah, I almost died.
I think oh my God, what?
Yeah, I swallowed my own shit.
No, some things never change, dude. Like the other day, Brandon was in Colorado visiting me, and I was like, what's taking you so long in there? He's like, sorry, I was eating. Be like, not again, dude.
No, but yeah, so I was 2 weeks late. But yeah, so where were we with that? Where were we just talking about?
We're talking about like just how far a single leg RDL's taken you. You've been talking about the same stuff for years. Yeah.
The basics, right? The basics take you so far. They give you everything that you need, everything that you need to do, right? And for me, which we're going to talk about, because this is an episode in and of itself, is this idea, like I call it the coach's island, right? We all have a home base. We all have a home that we live in that we're like, not literally, but like in our head, we have a home that we live in, right? And this is what houses like our ideas, our theories, our thoughts, our preferences, the way we think, the way we talk, the way we walk as a coach, right? And too many people forget about the home, right? And they're like, oh, piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy. Remember that Family Guy episode?
Oh, piece of candy.
They're like, oh, and they get all the way out. And then, they have no understanding of where they're actually at, right?
Or they even came from.
And then you see them doing, I shouldn't even say this because Amanda did it, the Bosu balls.
Well, that wasn't serious.
To be clear,
clearly joking.
I did not want to do that. She asked me. I said it was okay. I said I'd be there to help her, but I in no way, shape, or form encouraged it.
Brandon sat down. He's like, listen, I've been going through theories. 4 years in the making, Bosu ball squats. What?
I put all my time and effort, just like the power.
Everything I've done has built up to this singular moment. Flip that Bosu over, flat top up. We're going to put a barbell on your back.
I woke up and I was like, wait a second. I have an idea.
What's funny is like, it was the opposite. Like you woke up and everyone's just like, this guy doesn't have any idea.
Oh my God. They tried to get me fired. The UFC called. I was like, yo, what the fuck?
And she just wanted to have fun, dude.
So, but yeah, so like you see these people who go so far off the deep end, right? And this is, and I'm going to relate this back to this topic today, but like they go so far off the deep end looking for that next thing, right? That they forget to ever come home and like refine how it fits in with what they believe and know, right? And they end up just latching on to what someone else believes, and then what this other person believes, and then the next big person believes. And then they're all the way here and they get to this point where they're like, they climbed a tree with no way down. And they're like, oh shit, like how the hell am I going to get down? Right? There's no ladder, there's nothing, there's no one there to help you. It's like, all right, well, I just got all the way to this top point. I don't actually understand. I've just been kind of like taking things and going, right? As opposed to bringing it back home, putting it into what you already know, and then adding it to that trail, right? And kind of helping yourself create trails that leave your house, right? So, hey, I need to train X type of person. Great, let's go down this way, right? Oh, I need to coach this type of person. Hey, I know the path to get there, right? But it's always translating and relating or bringing yourself back home to like your metaphorical training home to understand. And when you learn new skills, they don't become like principle, or they don't become like the end all be all, right? They get dragged and brought back into your principles as a coach, right? Like I've learned so much, right? And especially over the last 6 weeks, I went to this movement camp, this movement retreat, Budokan yoga. Actually, it's the shirt I'm wearing. What's the word I'm looking for? Ironically enough, the shirt I'm wearing. But when I went out there, I would never catch myself in something like that 5 years ago, right? Like I would have been like, oh, that's stupid. Like doesn't make you, a better athlete, blah, blah, blah. And it's something I've been dabbling into myself as a coach the last couple, like 6 months to a year. And going out there showed me so much, right? And it taught me so much and it brought new information, right? But I didn't go and be like, okay, I'm a movement coach now. I brought it into how can I fit this in with what I know and believe works, right? So I brought it back. I sat down, I had conversations with Cameron, who's an awesome guy. who created the Budokan method. Cameron Shane is his name. And, I brought it back into what the BG Perform method is, and how it brought the success to everybody that it has brought so far, right? And I'm adding in these pieces as we go. I'm adding in these little, these little spices on top of what I believe is already true, right? And that makes up what I do on a daily basis. And it's always going to continue to get better, right? And I don't find myself reaching on certain things. If I see something, I try it, right? And this is something that Jerry said in the very beginning that I wanted to, hint at, is like, if you're not doing your own workouts, don't you dare give it to somebody else.
Dude,
I mean? Like,
it drives me nuts. I've seen this too. I've seen people like coach a Turkish getup. You could tell they've never done one in their life. They just
no
saw
one
it
should
on
be
the
doing
internet.
Turkish get-ups anyways. Turkish get-ups.
Yeah, just stop doing them.
Literally.
But like, it's literally any movement. Like, it could be a fucking split squat. If you're not doing them and you can't properly perform it, then you can't properly demonstrate it. You're performing an exercise and demonstrating an exercise incorrectly. Your client's going to do it incorrectly. You're going to wonder why they're not getting it right, and then they're going to end up getting hurt.
Yeah,
It's
it's
that
just for
same
the
situation.
it's the simple fact that, like, if you're doing exercise and you're not exercising, like, get the hell out. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to hear a coach's opinion. I don't want to see a coach who's like, yeah, I don't work out, but like, this book told me to do this. Like, if you come and talk to me like that, like, I probably won't do anything, but I just won't listen to you.
I've never built anything in my life, but
Yeah.
I'm going to give a house a shot. And be like, what the fuck?
So, like, it's just one of these things where, it becomes what makes personal training perceived as a scammy environment, or like this low level environment, right? And for us, that starts at, kind of like I said, bringing this back to day fucking one, right? Like, understanding when you step into that gym for the first time, when you sell yourself to that first client, when you get that first opportunity, not to treat it as nothing, right? Like, you don't just walk in and be like, all right, well, like, it's just a regular person. Like, what do they matter, right? It's like, no, this is your opportunity to be great, right? And it starts right in this session, right? When they walk in, how do you communicate? Even from before then, right? Like, when you sell this person, like, what do you do, right? How do you talk to them? How do you run your assessment? How do you run your consultation? How do they buy something from you? Like, these are things that people just don't even think about. Like, you're a coach and you want to make money, but you have no way to actually take in money. How does someone buy something from you, right? It's like, I don't know. I was like, great, let's figure it out. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things as coaches that if you can set up early enough, right, you're gonna be fine, right? Because to me, the coaching side of this is easy. And I don't mean that to say like coaching isn't hard. I mean that if you give it its time, and you give it its necessary respect, and you do it on a daily basis, you're bound to get better at it, right? And if you're learning and you're still a student, like, every single day you're going to learn something about coaching, programming, whatever. You're going to find people, and you're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to learn, and what you give, the product you give, is going to continuously get better, right? But the business stuff, the details, the payment structure, like, that stuff is stuff that you need to sit down and really build, right? And you need to build from an early training age, right? Or an early coaching age. And you just need to understand where you want to go, right? And if you want to do something big with this, and this isn't just a stepping stone, right? Be honest with yourself, right? If you're just doing this to make some quick cash and get out, I'm not going to say continue to coach, because like, you're going to mess it up for the rest of us, right? But like, if that's the case, just be honest with yourself and what you need, and then build your business around that. Because there's people like myself, there's people like Jerry, who are dedicating our lives to this, right? To make careers and make, people better humans, right? That then get dragged down when other people step in who aren't serious about this, right? Or who are just like, oh, it's easy. I could just be a personal trainer because I have a six pack. It's like, great, cool. That's awesome. Right.
You eat healthy. Nice.
Yeah. Great. I had an apple last week. I'm going to train people now. That's just
they have the machinist diet, an apple a day, maybe a slice of cheese.
Yeah. It's just like, when this mentality that like anybody becomes a coach, it's like, okay, well then anybody can be a doctor. Anybody can be a lawyer. You're going to trust anybody with your health, like, in terms
That's what's funny is no one would ever do it with that.
Yeah,
Because like what's common is like in those industries, it's like a university that you get your like doctor from, let's say. And
yeah,
then people are just like, oh, okay, well, they got schooling. But like you said, you can get a quick weekend course. That's schooling. You can say
yeah.
you have a certification, and then all of a sudden someone's a coach.
Well, it's just like I've also heard this thing. Like this is a really funny example that I was heard, but like you don't go to the barber and be like, "Well, why don't you cut my hair for free this time, and I'll let you know if I like it. Maybe I'll come back." It's like what? But every
Pardon?
time it's like, "Oh, well, can I get a free session? Can I get a free week? Can I get a free month?" It's like, bro, like what do you mean?
Yeah.
And like everybody in the personal training industry is like, who's the cheapest?
Mhm.
But like you don't go and find the cheapest lawyer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
dude,
unless
that's
you want to go to jail, I don't know like what's going on. Do you want to lose? It's like, oh, I'm gonna go find the cheapest lawyer. I'm gonna go find the cheapest doctor. I'm gonna go find the cheapest tattoo artist. It's like, cool, go ahead. See how that works out for you, right? But then they want to go and be like, oh, well, I've had multiple conversations where I've talked to people and they're like, oh, well, somebody's charging $30. I'm like, okay. Like then
trust that $30. Yeah.
go work with them and see how it is, right? Like I
Yeah.
had, my favorite conversation was about 6 months ago when I was still like based down here in Florida, and the lady reached out to me. She was recommended to me, and I sat down with her and I told her everything. I ran her through like the pricing and whatnot. And she was like, "Oh, that's kind of expensive." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, if you want to look at it like that, I understand. I offer what I offer. I feel is a very high level service, and I believe I'm a very different coach from a lot of these people. And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "My old trainer used to charge 70." And I was like, "Okay." And then she went on to be like, "Yeah, but he'd never show up, and sometimes he would just cancel and then like not tell me." And blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, well, that's what you get when you pay for less. And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't want to pay more than that. I'm like, okay, well, like, I can't help you there. You know what I mean? Like, I can't, like, you're complaining about the price and what you got for that price, but saying you don't want to pay more than that. It's like, well, then you have to be willing to eat that and be okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, there's no changing it. Like, you have to be willing to do that.
People want the luxury of a Tesla in a Prius, and you just
Exactly.
won't find it.
Exactly.
It's not
And
there.
for me, I'm an individual who's like, hey, if I can't have exactly what I want, right? I'll save to get it, right? In terms of money, but like I'm gonna do the next best thing. Like I'm gonna do my best to, and if I have to, like, I had this conversation recently too, is like, and I have a lot of these conversations recently because people ask me about it, but like, I spent so much money on education, right? Whether it be, well, like college wasn't really an expense that I paid, but like, you know, all the certifications, all the things after that were everything that I invested in. I've probably invested close to like 50 grand into continuing education, right? And I didn't necessarily have any of that money at the time. I've paid it off, or I've, worked my ass off to try to make sure that when I did buy something like that, I was able to pay it off. And it's hard, like, but you have to put yourself in that position. You have to network and you have to do these things, right? Like even my opportunity that I got in Florida was off a certification, right? Like it was off a certification that put me in front of somebody who then hired me and brought me down here, and it led to everything else. You know what I mean? So like that was the best $600 I ever spent. That $600 got me to sitting here today with the opportunities that I have. So like you don't know what that's going to bring you, right? So it's like when you see these options or you see these opportunities, it's like you got to weigh the options, right? You don't want to be stupid with your money. You don't want to just give it to anybody. But at the same point, it's like if you have an opportunity to learn from like someone who's great, at some point you got to be like, yo, like I got to figure this out. I'll figure it out later. I'll pay it later, like whatever it is, like, let me learn. And I think a lot of people nowadays are in positions where they're not willing to take the risk, right? Like, you know, I was living off a credit card when I first got down to Florida to make this thing work. You know what I mean? Like I was making very little per month and the rest was going on a credit card, right? And I'm still like, I'm towards the tail end of it, but I'm still dealing with it today. But it's just like this was what it like it's so worth it. Like I wouldn't even look back at that and be like, yo, I regret it 1 second, right? And that's something that I've learned as well over these past couple of years is like all these things that I used to like be so upset about and beat myself up over is like I wouldn't regret a single fucking thing now. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's just nothing that I would look back and be like, yeah, maybe one or two things, but like there's nothing that I would sit back and be like, hey, like I wish this happened differently, right? Because at the time I was like, this is miserable. I was pissed. Like, why would this happen? Blah blah blah. And now I'm just like, yo, like that's why, because I'm here, right? Because this is where I was meant to be. So, and again, this doesn't happen. You don't have these realizations. You don't have these opportunities for experience if you don't take it serious from day one. Right. And, I don't know that I have anything else to add on it. I mean, I don't know if you have anything else to add on it in regards to everything we talked about.
I mean, just to touch up on what you just said about like how you're living off a credit card. Like it's sometimes those decisions seem like they're impossible decisions. Like, oh, well, that would never work, but you just
Yeah.
have to kind of do it. Like same situation. Like you hear The Rock, right? He's like, I had $7 in my pocket. And I did whatever I had to do and I joined the WWF. And it's like, okay, cool. Did he actually have $7? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I know for a fact when I moved to Colorado, there was a point where I knew that moving to Colorado was going to be what was best for me to get in, like back into the industry after the pandemic because everything shut down and I wanted to jump back into it. I'm not kidding, $3
Yeah.
in
We
my
should
bank
call it
account.
$3 promotions then.
Yeah, right. Dude, like it was one of those things where it wasn't like I was living off of no food and like water. It was at the end of the month, I went to the grocery store, I paid rent, I paid all my bills.
Mhm.
And just before I got paid again, it was like, I have to live off this for 2 weeks before I get paid. And I had three
It's
fucking
scary.
dollars.
It's fucking
Yeah.
scary.
But
Like,
now, like if I didn't take that chance, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be where I am in the industry right now with all my clients and like it's some of the risks you have to take don't seem like it's going to be worth it, but if you make the jump and trust yourself, it's going to pay
yeah, and
off.
I want to be clear, right? I want to be super clear. Like, I'm not in a position where I'm like where I want to be. You
Oh
know,
yeah, there's always
like,
more. Yeah.
yeah, like I'm not. Well, I'm saying like I'm not making the money that I want to make at the moment. I'm not like in the, I'm in a position like career wise where I want to be, right? And like the rest of that stuff is coming, but like I don't want you guys to because I don't want you guys to just think like we're sitting here being like, oh yeah, we're perfect, we're doing
Yeah,
everything.
by
You know what
no
I mean?
means.
Like, but you know what I mean? Like the furthest from it. But like what I can give you is experiences into my mind and how I did this, right? And how we did this and how we took steps and how we learned and how we got to certain situations, right? And these opportunities, right, are and it really starts with this, right? You have to be honest about what is your end goal, right? Like you have to sit down, you have to look at what do I actually want to accomplish here? Because without that, and you just start following someone else's path, like that's how you become depressed. That's how you become like not enjoying this process, not learning about the things that you want to learn, right? You have to just be honest with yourself and not be or just be okay with what you want, right? Like if you want to coach kids for the rest of your life, that's great. Just find who right now is the best at coaching kids in the world, right? And then you go find that and you learn, right? In my case, mine was I wanted to coach fighters. Who was the best in the world at the time, right? Because it's me now. But at the time, I found who was the best in the world, and I went to go learn, right? And I put myself in positions, and I went to go do that, for other things, right? In the past, when I was learning more about the general population, I went to find people who are good at that, right? If you can go find those types of individuals, you're going to learn, you're going to be better, and you're going to, your product's going to be better. And that's all I'm trying to say is like, don't sit there on day one of coaching and be like, oh, well, I'm not good enough. So like, I'm not going to do this. It's like, no, like you're as good as you're going to be at that point, right then and there. Utilize what you know, right? And if you are having that conversation and you're like, yo, I'm not good enough, then fucking go get better, right? Go find somebody to make you better. Like have a conversation, reach out for help because I was like that early on, right? And I was at a point where I was like, if I ask for help, I'm going to be looked at differently. Like this isn't, people aren't going to respect me. People are going to be like, oh, he's getting ideas and thoughts from other people. And I limited myself, right? But then I was like, no, like that's not the case. Like I'm having people help me so I can better think and better respond and better have these conversations with myself so I can help people more. And as I started to do that and wasn't afraid to ask for help, things skyrocketed. I was able to in a lot of ways, I feel like in the last 3 years, right, or the steps that I've taken take some people lifetimes, right? Like even the award this year, like that I got nominated for, there's a dude who's been, and no, I'm not going to talk about it, but there's a dude on that award that has been coaching for like 15 years at the best gym in the world, quote unquote, the best gym in the world. Gym sucks. Fuck ATT. But for like 15 years, right? And that was the first year he's ever been nominated for this thing, right? I've been doing it for a year and I got my first nomination, right? And it's like, not to say I'm better, right? It's not to say whatever. It's just that like sometimes this shit takes time, right? And sometimes you get opportunities and when you're supposed to be in the place that you're supposed to be, it's going to happen, right? But you have to make sure you're doing that work every single day from day one, right? Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Fuck ATT. Let's go.
He's just turned into a monkey with the symbols.
But yeah, so I think, like I said, I said I didn't have anything else to add, and I just kept talking. But I really don't think
actually I do want to add one more thing to that. When it starts at day one, is you were saying that like you don't have to like be the best at that moment and like give up. Like if you're not, you give up. I remember when I got into the industry, I knew I wanted to be in strength and conditioning. I didn't know which area. I was figuring it out, and working with clients helped me get there. Because I was also looking at like exercise rehab and like maybe going into physical therapy at the time because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
Me too.
And I found that
grades were so fucking bad from college that I knew I
wouldn't have gotten ruined. If math and physics, I had to take physics twice. I had to take chem twice. I hated it. But anyway,
I passed physics by like 0.1 of what I was supposed to get over.
Dude, physics 2 was like miles easier than physics 1. We were learning circuits and shit. What am I going to use? I'm not going to build a fucking circuit for physical therapy. But either way, when I first got into coaching, I was learning from clients like, okay, this person had a knee injury and I helped fix it with them. Like that was cool. This person just got a PR. And I was like, that was a little more fun. Like it's like, it's the same reward, right? Like someone can continue to perform. Someone just got better at performing. And I was piecing together where I wanted to be in the industry, and it helped me carve my path of where I want to go now. So on day one, it literally starts then. Find what you love to do, the things that you're most passionate about in your career, starting from day one. Write them down, piece them together, literally draw.
I gotta add something else. So while he's saying that too, it's okay if things change, right? It's okay if you step into the industry. Be like, yo, I want to be a rehab specialist. Yo, I want to be a strength conditioning coach. And then things just happen, right? Like this is one of the biggest things I've allowed myself to do is just let things happen as a coach, right? Like my goal was never to work with female MMA fighters, right? It just happened and I went with it and I did my research and I continued to add the things I needed to do because that was the type of clientele that I was very much at the time vibing with. Right. And I was seeing success with it. I was seeing results with it. And I wasn't like, that's not what I do. I'm not doing it. I was like, okay, this is pretty fun. This is pretty cool. Like, I'm going to go down this route and see how it goes, get the information. Is it something I want to, and it just happens. Right. And then everything that like I changed my path 1,000 times as to what I was going to be. Right. Even the same with you. I was going to go to PT after college, physical therapy school. I didn't have the grades. Right. So then I started to like, I still love the rehab sector, right? The rehab space. And I just continued to dive into it on my own and just continue to learn and try different methods and try different things. And then when I kind of reached a limit with that, I reached out for help. And then when I reached a limit with that, I reached out for help. And then it got me to a point where after that, things started to pop up. Certain types of clients started to pop up. Certain opportunities popped up. My passions and my own hobbies and interests changed, right? And as I went through that, it went down, and then it led to this, right? And I just let it happen as it go. I didn't try to stop and be like, oh, I'm, one of the biggest things I wanted to do was basketball at one point, right?
I remember that.
Basketball. I played basketball my entire career. I would like to eventually get back into it, but like I went with it and it didn't work. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to stick down this MMA path, right? And then I started down the MMA path and I fell in love with it. And then it led to this, right? Because I truly believe this is where I was meant to be at this point in my life, right? Otherwise, the other stuff would have worked out. You know what I mean? So like, don't be gun shy with some of this stuff. Like if something's feeling like it's working, go with it, try it, right? And then something else is going to come up, and then it's going to just keep taking you down this path, right? And what I would say too, though, you know, in that same breath is like, don't just change to change, right? Like, don't put yourself and be like, oh, it's been 15 minutes. I should probably learn something else, right? Or like, oh, I'm going to be a specialist in feet now. And then tomorrow I'm going to be a specialist in shoulders. And it's like, no, like, you know, whatever you're good at, you're going to know that you're good at it, right? And when that becomes the thing, and if you can still become a specialist in that and put your time, go with it, right? Dive into it and add these little other pieces into that, right? Because having a niche, having that opportunity where you know where you're good at and what you can get better at, is that's how you become the best coach that you can be, you know? And that's how all this starts. So
And that was beautiful.
That was poetry. Poetry.
Well, you're sitting still, but
I was moving. I was using my
I was
hand.
going like this the whole time.
I was doing like wacky inflatable
Power
arms.
within.
You, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Dude, you look just like it. It's crazy.
So I think we can cut it there. I think this is a really good talk. This is gonna be the first full episode, obviously, that me and Jerry have done together. And this thing's only gonna get better, right? This is day one, just like us. This is day one.
This starts at day one.
We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it well.
Let's go.
So if you guys enjoyed this, please let us know. Share it, subscribe, comment, do whatever you got to do to let people know about it. It's going to be on, it'll probably be up. I'll probably post it today at some point. And then, which is, it's Thursday. So it should hopefully be up by tonight. Then you guys can listen to it. Still haven't decided on a specific date to keep releasing, but we're going to do one episode per week. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Ian has a new opponent next Saturday. He's about to whoop Neil Magny's ass, son. That's the guy he originally wanted after his last fight. And then pay attention to that post-fight interview because Ian's got some stuff to say. He's got some stuff to say. And yeah, and then outside of that, Jerry, do you have anything exciting coming up?
No.
No.
No, I'm just working on a bunch of stuff. You know, just building everything up. We have a bunch of stuff. That's the biggest thing. I was gonna say working on a bunch of stuff on my own, but biggest thing is just we're gonna keep growing BG Perform. It's gonna be good. Listen, a lot of big things on the way.
BG Perform is going to take the world by storm.
Yes, sir.
I'm gonna know it. You're just gonna wake up and it's gonna be like this.
He didn't even mean to rhyme. That's how fast it's taking it by storm. He didn't even have time to think about it. He said,
what did I say? Oh, BG Perform is going to take the world by storm.
Yeah, dude. See? Woo! That's how fast it's moving. It's a freaking hurricane.
God. Oh, my God. Oh, we're on fire. Fire. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this episode serves you. And we thank you for taking the time to listen. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.